Hello there, welcome back. Which question type do you think is the most prominent question type in the English section of any entrance test? Yes, you've guessed it right. It's a reading comprehension passage-based questions. Hi, my name is Brinda, and in this session, we will talk about super tips and techniques that will help you get the answer to the reading comprehension passage-based questions right. So let's just begin. Well, when we talk about the reading comprehension passage-based questions, we think of a passage of moderate length and a good 4 to 5 questions based on them. Now, these 4 to 5 questions, broadly speaking, can be categorized under three heads. That is the direct questions. So for these question types, you'll get the answer explicitly stated in the passage given above. The indirect questions. Here you'll have to understand what the writer has wants to tell you or what's the scope of the passage, and then you will be able to find the answer. And then you have contextual vocabulary based questions. Here they'll give you a word and you will be asked to either get a synonym or the antonym or the usage of the word as given above. So these are the broad question types. Today in this session, let's find out how to deal with these questions and get the answers right. So watch the video till the end and see how this video will help you improve your, say, handling or the comprehension of these reading comprehension passages. So trick number one is for the questions that are main idea based questions. So the main idea based question is supposed to be the toughest question of all because here if you do not understand what the passage is about, what was the writer thinking when he wrote the passage, we will not be able to get the answer. So for this one, you need to read the passage carefully before you decide the right answer, before you choose the right answer. So see, a good strategy to get the answer of this type, focus more on the first line of every paragraph because generally the first line of each paragraph will tell you what the writer has to say because he generally introduces the thought in the first line and then he kind of just elaborates that thought in the remaining line. So he'll build on it, he'll exemplify it before he moves on to the next paragraph and talk about a different point or maybe something connected to the previous line. Uh, let's take a look at a sample question to get a better idea of how to deal with this question type. So I'll read the passage. You can pause the video and read the question with me. As a symbol of freedom, of wilderness, bald eagles have the unique capacity to inspire people and foster in them a sympathetic attitude toward the need of other threatened species. Clearly, without that sympathy and political will it engenders, the needs of more obscure species will go unmet. The conservation needs of many obscure species can only be met by beginning with the conservation of this symbolic species, the bald eagle. Now, what was the passage about? Now, don't expect a passage to be that short. It will be slightly bigger. But then, if you understand the gist of the paragraph or the passage, you will definitely be able to get the answer. So, what did the writer tell us through these lines? See, number one, he talked about the bald eagle, which is the symbol of freedom of the wilderness. Then he said that it can inspire, say, sympathetic attitude in people. Then it said that without this, the other obscure species might perish. So, beginning with the conservation of this endangered species, let's just try to conserve the other species as well. So, I mean, all in all, he said, save bald eagle, and then, then think of the other species also. Now, let's take a look at the options. Because bald eagles symbolize freedom, conservation efforts should be concentrated on them rather than on other obscure species. See, we did talk about the bald eagle and other obscure species, but did the writer say that, okay, conserve this, forget the rest? No, he didn't say that. So it's a clear distortion. And if it's distortion, eliminate it. It's not the answer. The conservation of bald eagle is the first necessary step in conserving other endangered species. Looks like a good answer choice, but never jump to conclusions. Take a look at the other options also before you finalize the answer. Without increased public sympathy for conservation, the needs of many symbolic species will go unmet. Now, see, it says that if we can't engender public sympathy for conservation, the needs of many symbolic species will go unmet. Looks like something that the writer was saying, but it's a broad, generic statement. They did talk about the bald eagle and other obscure species. No, it's a broad statement. It can be uh, See, if a question like, I mean, if a statement like this, which is really broad in its approach, generally will not be the answer, let's take a look at the rest of the choices. People's love of wilderness can be used to engender political support for conservation efforts. Now, see, again, we are talking about a broad statement. It doesn't uh, talk about what's there in the passage. The writer specifically talked about bald eagle and other obscure species. It's a broad statement again, cannot be the answer. And we're not talking about people's love of wilderness. We're talking about bald eagle here. Other threatened species do not inspire people or foster sympathy as much as bald eagles do. Now, does the writer say that the other species do not inspire people and only as much as the bald eagles do? No, he just merely stated that let's start conserving them. It'll work as a beginning to start conserving the other species as well. That is what he was trying to tell us. So the only option that was closest to the given passage was option B. Thereby, option B is the only right answer. Now, let's take a look at the next question type. Wasn't that easy, students? Trick number two, for questions based on interpretation of the tone. So here, see, you have to understand the choice of words. Generally, the first line itself will tell you a lot about the writer's thought process. So, if the writer, see, generally, when you know that you have to answer a tone-based question, try and identify as you read whether the writer is annoyed, whether he's happy, or he's neutral. He's just stating some facts. So, these will help you, say, decide which tone to select out of the given options. Now, let's read the passage quickly. Traditional values are changing. We are aping the West and making monkeys of ourselves. Now, when somebody says that, okay, we are copying others and we are making monkeys of ourselves, does the person sound happy or satisfied or in a positive mood? No, he's not even neutral. He's in a very critical tone. He's talking in a very critical tone. He's not happy. He's kind of annoyed. Let's read further. While Hollywood is extolling the history of their own people and making epic movies like Gangs of New York, Pirates of the Caribbean, Hollywood is busying itself with desperate attempts to make amateur American teen-like movies and Hollywood flicks. While we concentrate on remixing songs and duplicating English videos, we are slowly stepping away from the path of originality and individuality. But while in the last generation there was just plain following of Western principles by the youth, now there have been greater benefits. The youth today not only learn from the West, but they, like their great ancestors, who built this nation are combining this knowledge with their own culture, and now a time has come where the West is aping the East. Punjabi tunes, Desi styles, and Indian art has hit markets overseas and is making us known to the world. So while there is a change, like I mentioned earlier, it isn't all for the worse. So he started off at a very negative tone, but then the moment he wrote this part, he included this, but he changed his tone and he said, okay, maybe there was a time when we did this, but then there is a change in the style of working. So we have become innovative, and so much so that the West has started copying us. And then he says that, okay, there is a change, but it isn't, say, all for the worse. So he started off at a very critical note, but he ended on a very happy note. So there was a combination of two tones here, a negative one and a positive one. So when you look at the answer choices, try and eliminate the tones which do not match the negative and the positive type. So if there is anything other than this, you can eliminate them without giving it a second thought. So let's just take a look at the options. Critical but optimistic, negative, positive. We can keep this. Denouncing and pessimistic. Denouncing is again a very negative tone where you kind of criticize somebody openly. Pessimistic, hopeless, both negative. Well, not the right answer choice. We can eliminate. Option C, sympathetic, hopeful. Sympathetic, positive, hopeful, again positive. We are looking for negative positive combination. Eliminate. Critical and pessimistic. Critical, negative, pessimistic, another form of negative tone type. So, option B, C, and D can be very easily eliminated because they do not fit the requirement here negative, positive. So, he was really negative in the first half and very positive in the second half. Now, which answer choice matches the criteria here? Yes, option A. So, critical, where he was criticizing, and then optimistic, where he was hopeful that things are not that bad. Things will are good, they are improving. So, the answer here is so easily found. Option A, that is critical and optimistic. Negative, positive. Now let's take a look at the next question type. Now let's take a look at trick number 3 to solve the contextual vocabulary based question. So here is your question and the passage. A seemingly insatiable appetite for seafood delicacies like smoked salmon, king prawn, and grilled sea bass has inevitably contributed to a sharp reduction in ocean fish population. As a result of a number of commercial reports frequently returning to the shore with empty nets, it became clear that the supply was starting to run significantly short of an ever increasing demand. What do the lines tell us? That the ocean fish population is going down, and still there is an ever increasing demand. And these have started to run significantly short, and frequently the boats have started coming back with empty nets. Now let's take a look at the options. Piercing, which means shrewd, discerning. Intense, which is enormous, great. Abrupt, sudden. Appreciable, considerable, substantial. Now, the word sharp, as stated in the passage, says has inevitably contributed to a sharp reduction in the ocean fish population. Which two options can be easily eliminated? See, it's not piercing reduction, right? Then abrupt, intense, and appreciable. Abrupt is sudden, right? Now, if you read the very next line, it says, as the number of commercial boats find themselves frequently returning with emptiness, that means it didn't happen one fine day. It was happening. So frequently the boats were coming back with empty-handed, right? So it wasn't abrupt either. Now you're left with intense and appreciable. Now, what do you think is a better answer choice out of the two? Intense, which is great, or appreciable, which is considerable, substantial. See, intense means great, but can a reduction be great? See, pain can be intense, happiness can be intense, but can reduction be intense? No, it can't. Appreciable, that is considerable, substantiable, substantiate, or noticeable. So, a noticeable reduction in the ocean fish population. What do you think is the right answer here? It is appreciable. So you need to understand the word, how it is used in a sentence, and what message it conveys to get the answer right. Now, let's take a look at the next question type. So, trick 4 for the inference based questions. See here, you will have to understand the meaning of the given line before you can finalize your answer. So this says, one New York publisher has estimated that 50,000 to 60,000 people in the United States want an anthology collection of books and poetries that include the complete works of Shakespeare. And what accounts for this renewed interest in Shakespeare? As scholars point out, the psychological insights he portrays in both male and female characters are amazing even today. So, what does the writer tell us? That, say, a New York publisher has estimated that many people of New York, and he's given you a figure. He's giving you statistics. In US, want say anthology that includes the complete work of William Shakespeare because see the psychological insight that he portrayed in his male and female characters is very interesting even today. So people like that psychological insight that he has portrayed in his characters. Now let's take a look at the options. So the paragraph best supports the statement that Shakespeare's characters are more interesting than fictional characters today. So did we talk about fictional characters anywhere in the given lines? No, it's an alien term, right? Eliminate it. People today are interested in Shakespeare work because of the characters. Well, a plausible answer choice. Put this on hold. Academic scholars are putting together an anthology of Shakespeare work. Well, the line said that people want it. Did the writer say that they've started working on it? Maybe they have, but does the passage state that? No, it doesn't. If the information is not there in the passage, it cannot be the answer. Eliminate. New Yorkers have a renewed interest in the work of Shakespeare. Well, the line said one New York publisher has estimated that 50 to 60,000 people in the US. Did it say New York? No, it didn't. So are we only talking about New Yorkers in the given passage? No, we aren't. Eliminate. Don't even read what's given ahead. Shakespeare was a psychiatrist as well as a playwright. Well, a playwright he was, but was he a psychiatrist? Just because his characters were interesting and he had the psychological insight that he portrayed in them, does it make him a psychiatrist? I mean, that's a professional degree, right? And he was just a writer. So this is not given there, so cannot be the answer. So the only answer choice that we were not able to eliminate was option B. People today are interested in his work because of the characters. So see, the answer may not be the exact thing that's there, but you will definitely find the closest correct answer out of the given choices. So use your logic, use your searching ability, and the answers are right there, right in front of you. You just have to identify them. And the last strategy and the trick for all and except type questions. Now, here, out of the four or the five options, three or four, whatever is the number, say if there are four answer choices, three will point in one direction and just one will be different from the other three. So you have to find the odd sentence out of the given answer choices to get these type of answers right. Simple questions. See, what will be odd? Something that's not there and is given here, or maybe it's distorted. That will be the odd sentence. That would be the except sentence that's given. I mean, in the answer choice, but not in the passage. So let's understand this with the help of an example. So it has been suggested that the ant of each nest have some sign or password by which they recognize one another. To test this, I made them insensible. First, I tried chloroform, but this was fatal. I did not consider the test satisfactory. I decided to intoxicate them. This was less easy than I expected. None of my ants would voluntarily degrade themselves by getting drunk. However, I got over the difficulty by putting them into whiskey for a few moments. I took 50 specimens, 25% from one nest and 25 from the other, made them dead drunk, marked each of them with a spot of paint, put them on the table close to where the other ants from one of the nests were feeding. The table was surrounded as usual with a moat of water to prevent them from straying. The ants which were feeding soon noticed those which I had made drunk. They seemed quite astonished to find their comrades in such a disgraceful condition, and as much at loss to know what to do with their drunkards as we were. After a while, they carried them all away. The strangers they took to the edge of the moat, dropped them into the water, while they bore their friends home in the nest, where by degrees they slept off the effect of the spirits. Thus, it is evident that they know their friends even when incapable of giving any sign or password. So, what does the passage talk about? So, probably the writer wanted to understand whether the ants can recognize each other or do they use a password to recognize each other. So probably he conducted an experiment. So he probably had two separate nests. So he took some ants from both and got them intoxicated and left them in one of the nests. So the remaining ants of the nest came, they identified their own comrades, took them back, and the stranger ants were thrown off or thrown away from the nest. So that is what the passage is about. Now let's take a look at the question. Author's anecdotes of the inebriated ants would support all of the following inductions except the statement that. So that means there are four statements. Three of them will point in one direction. That means they will be C. They will support what's there in the passage, and one of them will not support. So, what do you think could be the answer? C. Anything that goes reverse or opposite to what the writer has written, or something that's not even there in the passage. That would be our answer. So let's take a look at the answer choices. Ants take unwillingly to intoxicants. Well, the writer very clearly stated that it was less easy than I had expected. So he tried to intoxicate them. It was less easy than I had expected. That means they take unwillingly to intoxicants. So it's given there. It's a true statement, right? We can infer it. So not our answer. And aids comrades in distress. Well, I guess it was very clearly stated somewhere in the passage. So they carried them all away. The strangers they took to the edge and dropped them into the water while they bore their friends home in the nest. So they carried their own comrades back to their nest. So they aid, that is, they help their friends in distress in the time of their need. Ants have invariable recognition of their community members. See, had they not recognized that these are the members of our nest, they wouldn't have helped them. So they clearly threw the strangers off the nest and they carried their friends back. That means they recognize their friends, right? Their comrades. So this is another true statement which can be inferred from the passage. The last one. Ants recognize their comrades by a mysterious password. Well, I guess that was what the whole experiment was all about, So see, it has been suggested that they have some sign or password by which they recognize one another. And when their comrades were dead drunk, that is the term that the writer used. They were dead drunk. Still, their friends recognized them and took them to the nest. So that means they do not use a mysterious password. And I guess A very clearly states that also. It is evident that they know their friends even when incapable of giving any sign or password. So this line is contradicting the last line that the writer has written in the passage. So, out of four, three true statements and just one false statement. The question said all except the statement that. So, what is our answer in this case? That's option number four. That is option number D. So, students, with this, I come to the end of this session. I hope you were able to gain something. Do leave your comments in the comment section below. Do get back to us with your queries. We would love to hear from you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay connected for more informative videos. Take care. Bye bye.